And they said, we have to do a lymph angiogram. I said, I don't know what that is, but what is that? They said, well, we have to see if the cancer spread. I said, hold on, wait a second, what the hell, cancer? And they said, yes, we found cancer, you have testicular cancer.
Whether you're a patient, survivor, or caregiver, you don't have to walk the cancer journey alone. Let's leave the past behind and come into this present moment together to be educated, inspired, and enlightened. This is Mind, Body, Spirit, Cancer. Welcome to Mind, Body, Spirit, Cancer, a new podcast presented by the American Cancer Society. I'm your host, Pat Croce, and I'm beyond excited for this week's guest. He's a Philadelphia sports icon who is a three-time Major League Baseball All-Star and the first baseman for the legendary 1993 National League champion Philadelphia Phillies team. After retiring from the game in 1995, he moved on to a successful broadcasting career spanning over 2 decades for outlets like Fox Sports, ESPN, and NBC Sports Philadelphia. These days, you can hear John back in the booth providing commentary for the Phils in his own unique way. He's a husband, father of 2, avid golfer, Philadelphia Phillies Baseball Wall of Fame member, and a testicular cancer survivor. Please welcome my good friend, John Kruk.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
It's great to see you again, buddy. John,
It's been a while.
It's been 2 decades, over 20 years. And now before I bring us back to that moment when I last saw you, I love to start the show just with a moment of stillness. And I have this Tibetan bell, which I just easily, gently, lovingly ring. And I ask all who are watching this podcast just to place your attention on this sound. John, the magic of that bell is that people who don't meditate don't realize they just meditated.
No, I feel relaxed now.
You're always relaxed. And I got to bring it back to, I think it's been about 2 decades. The last time I saw you, I was guest hosting for Tom Arnold, who was away for a week, and you were like the star of this show. Do you remember that? The best damn sports show?
I remember well. Well, that was a fun one. But I had to cut it short. My son was born. My wife didn't want to live in California, and I was flying back and forth every weekend, and it just got to be too much. I had to move back here.
How long were you on the show?
I think 2 or 3 years, maybe. I can't remember.
I know you were the star of the show. You were the fun part of the show.
It was a blast. It really was.
So before you were a broadcaster, even as you're doing right now in the Phillies booth, you were like one of our stars in Philadelphia. But I'd like to take us back. When did you know that you wanted to be a major league player?
Well, I never really thought about it, to be honest with you. Thank goodness we didn't have travel ball and all the stuff that they have now where you have to train year round as, a 10-year-old. I think that's a joke myself, but, I just played. I had 3 older brothers. So if I wanted to play, I had to be able to compete with them. So I got advanced early just because of having 3 older brothers. But, it's funny that I never got one scholarship offer for baseball out of high school. Every scholarship I had offered to me from the Division II schools in West Virginia were all for basketball. And so I went to a junior college with the thought that, if I wanted to play baseball, that option was there. But I went to play basketball and didn't really think about playing baseball. And one of the players on the baseball team said the magic words to me, Pat, and that was, we get off 2 weeks to go to Florida. And I'm like, you got yourself a right fielder. And that's how it started. I just remember, at our games, there was these, older gentlemen with clipboards and stopwatches. And I'm like, I asked one of the guys, I said, who are those? Who are those guys? He said, oh, that guy's a scout for the Reds. That guy's a scout for the Yankees. This guy's a scout for the Dodgers. And I was like, scouting for what? They said, well, if they like you, they might draft you. And I'm like, yeah, there we go. That'll never happen. And then lo and behold, I got drafted. And I thought, well, might as well give it a shot. So that's how all that came about. I didn't really plan on playing professional baseball. It just kind of happened.
John, can you believe this year marks the 30th anniversary of the 1993 Phillies National League Championship season?
Pat, prior to that, when I got traded to the Phillies in '89, we were awful. But then they started making trades. They brought in, they traded Steve Bedrosian. We got Terry Mulholland, Dennis Cook, Charlie Hayes. We traded Juan Samuel and got Lenny Dykstra and Roger McDowell. And I forget who else. We traded a bunch of the veteran players got traded then. And we started getting younger. In '92, we finished in last place, but I think we were right at the top of the league. We might have even led the league in runs scored. So we knew we could score. We just couldn't stop people from scoring. And so, then, we got Kurt Schilling, Tommy Green, we got Ben Rivera, we got and Danny Jackson we signed in the offseason in '92. And it was just one of those things that, like, immediately from day one of spring training, the chemistry was there. And, we loved being around each other and we loved playing for each other. And
John, stay there for just 1 second. When you say chemistry was there, we always hear about chemistry in sports, but for our listeners and viewers, what do you define as that chemistry that made this team so special?
Well, we were known to get into fights, brawls on the field. And I think we had 3-1 game in spring training against the Cardinals that year. And it was, the whole group. It was the only time, because we had platoons at left field, right field, and second base. And a lot of times, Pat, if you have platoon situations, one of the guys could get jealous. Why am I not playing more? Not one word from those 3 platoon situations. Not one word from any of those 6 guys that were platooning. Our pitching staff competed against each other. Terry Mulholland threw a complete game. Kurt Schilling wanted to throw a complete game. If Schilling threw a complete game, Tommy Green wanted to throw a complete game. And it went, we competed against each other, but in a good way that brought the team closer together. And, I probably not politically correct to say this, but, we would sit on the plains and play cards and drink beer and, go hang out together on the road. I mean, it was so much fun going there every day, not knowing, one, what was going to happen, but two, how are we going to go about, look, we goofed off. We had fun. The game started at 7:30, 7 o'clock. We started getting locked in. Once we took the field, it was crazy. It was all of us pulling together. Guys weren't up in the clubhouse watching the game on TV. Everyone was down the dugout pulling for each other.
And John, you also had a life-changing event during the '93 season before the World Series. That summer, you suffered the injury that would eventually lead to your cancer diagnosis. Please, can you tell us about it?
Well, we were playing in Los Angeles, and in the 9th inning, like later in the game, Los Angeles, I don't know why, but for some reason, the grass had a little dew on it late in the game. And I forget who hit it, but someone hit a swing and bunt, and Mitch Williams fielded it, but there was a runner on second. And when he threw it, it bounced. So I had to basically be like a hockey goalie and try to block it. Well, it hit me, thank goodness I had a cup on, I guess, but it broke my cup.
Whoa.
And yeah. And so after the game, I went in, we finished the game. We ended up winning. And I went in and told the trainer, I said, I got a little issue here. And, there was a lump. And the most painful thing was having to ice that area. That was brutal. But so, as the season went on, I noticed that it got more painful. the lump kept getting bigger and bigger. So I kind of figured this isn't from getting hit by a ball. This is something else. I didn't want to say anything though, because I was afraid that if it was something worse, I wouldn't have got to play in a playoffs or a World Series. So I kind of ignored it. And over that winter, after the World Series over, it just kept getting worse and worse to where, I had to wear gym shorts. I couldn't wear pants. It hurt so bad. And then the next year, when I knew something was wrong. I was in denial. You know how athletes are, like, well, it'll just go away eventually, but this didn't go away.
So give us a time frame from the getting hit with the ball, thinking it might have been a contusion or a bruise, to the point in your mind, something is wrong here. How long of a time frame are we talking?
I believe it was in June or July when I got hit. And I knew in August there was something going on. And then, August it got bad. September it got bad. October it got really bad. That was my 8th year, I think, in the big leagues, and never once had I even remotely had a chance of playing in the postseason. So I just wanted to play in the postseason. I wanted to compete for a world championship. And so that winter, like I said, after the World Series over, it just got worse and worse and worse. And so I went down to Florida in February, talked to the trainer. They sent me to the hospital to get checked. And they did a ultrasound, and they said it's a hematoma or whatever that is. I don't know what the hell that is, Pat.
A bruise.
Yeah. And so they said, you're going to be fine. We're going to give you anti-inflammatories. It'll take care of it. All right, fine. But trying to wear a cup, and as spring training, I was only there for like a few days. Every time I bend over to field a grounder, I got sick to my stomach and felt like I was, going to throw up all the time. So I went back to the doctors again in Florida, and they said it's a hematoma. And so Bill Giles, our owner, he said, we got to get you checked. And so he said, we're flying you up to Philly, and, you're going to go see a urologist there. So, I flew up, and they ran tests, and they said it's a hematoma. So I'm like, well, okay, nothing's wrong. So I asked the doctor, I said, can you remove it? And he goes, well, no, we don't remove someone's testicle because they have a hematoma. I said, but I can't play like this. So if you take it out, the problem's gone, right? And he said, well, yeah, I guess it is. And I said, well, then take it out. And he said, I tell you what, go for a walk.
Wait a second, John, hold on for a second. You make the diagnosis is a hematoma, which is a bloody bruise, a bruise that swells and it's full of blood, and it's painful because it's confined tissue. And you tell the doctor on this diagnosis of a hematoma that you want one of your 2 testicles removed.
Yep. And he said, go take a walk, go have lunch, come back and we'll discuss it. I walked down the hallway, made a U-turn, went back in, and I said, let's do it. And he's like, all right, we'll do it. So they did the surgery. I'm in a room, and they said this young doctor came in, and he said, hey, the surgery went fine. Everything's good. No, everything's fine. You're going to be back in normal in a few days. I'm like, perfect. That'll give me, 2 or 3 weeks left of spring training where I can get ready to play in a season, defend our National League championship. Well, the next morning, nurse comes in and they start wheeling me somewhere. And I'm like, where am I going? And they said, we have to do a lymph angiogram. I said, I don't know what that is, but what is that? They said, well, we have to see if the cancer spread. I said, hold on, wait a second. What the hell? Cancer? And they said, yes, we found cancer. You have testicular cancer. So we have to do this lymph angiogram, which that was painful when they stick needles in between your toes to numb you. And then they cut open both feet and they pull out like a blood vessel and they shoot dye in it to see if the cancer spread. And lo and behold, the cancer had spread into my stomach. So it was worse than what anyone thought. And so, but I remember the first day, the Phillies were great. They put me in, I can't remember, the Hotel Bellevue, maybe downtown, not far from Jefferson Hospital. And so Bill Giles was great. He put me in a big suite, knowing that I was going to be there to get radiation treatments and whatever. The first night there, after they cut my feet open, they had a fire in the kitchen. So I had to walk down all those steps.
Oh.
And I'm looking down at my feet and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of blood coming out here. So I had to walk to Jefferson and they had to sew me back up. And then I went back to the hotel and they let us all back in after they put the fire out in the kitchen. And that was it. So I stayed up there for 30 days. I had 25 radiation treatments. The dumbest thing I ever did, though, Pat, was I was still
John, just to be sure, this is in 1994, right after the championship year.
Yes.
You're starting the next season.
Yeah. Well, I had to stay. The team started on the road. I believe they were Colorado and Cincinnati, maybe. And I couldn't go because I was getting radiation treatments. And the home opener, I wanted to play, but we had a day game and I had a radiation treatment that morning. I went to the ballpark, slept, and then had to convince Jim Fregosi, our manager, Lee Thomas, our general manager, Dave Montgomery was in there, was president of the team. And I had to get the doctor on the phone to say, look, if he feels like he can play, he can play. He's not going to hurt anything. And that was probably the dumbest thing I did. I shouldn't have played after getting radiation because I was so weak. And
John, what number radiation treatment was this at the time that you wanted to return to play that night?
It was probably, I had to get 25, so it was probably 22nd. So I had 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So I had 4 more left. And I think our home opener was on a Monday. And so I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I played 4 games. And honest to God, Jim Fregosi called me in. He said, I'm sitting you for a while. I said, why? He said, you're green. You look green. He said, look at you. And I'm like, yeah, no. I said, I'm wore out and beat. Because I didn't have a spring training. We scraped ice away from Veteran Stadium so I could hit. And you remember the Eagles had that practice bubble?
Yes.
They let me in there to take grounders. And that was my spring training.
John, let me just review this so that you have 1 testicle removed. You have cancer that spread into your abdomen. Mm-hmm. The radiation is to kill this cancer. You didn't have any surgery to your stomach.
No. And luckily,
but during the 20th session or 21st session of radiation, listen, I've had 15 across my chest, so I know what it does. To have 20 radiation treatments and to return to play that night pro ball, you are one crazy.
Yeah.
So do you think that time it set you back in your treatment plan?
No, they went on and I finished my last one. And then I had to go back every month to get checked. The cancer was gone. It never returned. Of course, after 10 years so I had to get checked like 4 or 5 times a year. The first year, 4 or 5 times the second year, So 10 years after I was diagnosed, they declared me cancer-free. And but it was stupid. I shouldn't have played.
So that's what you're saying is stupid. But how was your mindset when you realized your body was diagnosed with cancer? Take us into your mind. What did that feel like?
Whenever you hear cancer, it scares what out of you. And I was afraid. And then they tell me it spread. So now I'm like really, really worried about, is this it? I mean, how long do I have to live with this? And so I mean, but I don't know. I think being an athlete helped because, I've had surgeries, came back after rehab and everything was fine. And so in my mind, I told myself, well, this is just another injury and it'll eventually go away and get better and whatever. And yeah, I wish that I would have waited longer to start playing in '94. But, we were the defending National League champions and I absolutely loved being around our team. And I just wanted to be back out on the field with those guys.
God bless you. How was it as a pro athlete and a famous pro athlete, knowing that the public is following your ongoing health issue?
Well, we were going to kind of try to keep it quiet. And
Good luck with that.
yeah, well, I remember going in for my first radiation treatment, and there's, all the news stations were there and everything. And, I didn't care for me because I kind of thought that could happen. But when they were interfering with young kids going in for cancer treatments, for chemo and radiation and all that stuff, that's when I had to say, you know what, we need to stop this. So I had to have a press conference, and I called the Phillies PR, and they set up a press conference at the ballpark. And this is what I had to tell them what was going on. And as an athlete, and we're all macho, and to have to go to the public and say, I have testicular cancer. I had to have one of my testicles removed. You kind of feel like, do they really need to know all this personal stuff? But I just didn't want those young kids who were in life and death situation with their cancer being interrupted by these people. So I just said, this is it. One and done. Please leave us alone. Leave these kids alone. Leave me alone. This is what I have. This is the game plan that we're going to have to do for me to get better. And hopefully I can return to play at some point this coming season. And the people at Jefferson were unbelievable. They actually, I was the first one in then every morning before everyone else got there, just in case the media would show up again, because Pat, you know how they are. They don't like taking no for an answer. And so they brought me, and I would meet this lady who did PR for Jefferson Hospital. She would bring me in like a back door, a back entrance, and I'd go in and get radiation and walk back. There was a pretzel vendor there. You know how I love those vendors out on the streets in Philly. And every day I walked out of there, he gave me a soft pretzel because I couldn't really eat because, they're shooting in my stomach. And, you know how it is with chemo, you're sick. You just feel like crap every day. But that pretzel was like prime rib. I mean, it was that good, when you're dealing with all this. And I just remember every day I'd walk out and he'd hand me a pretzel. Never once did he want an autograph. Never once did he want tickets to a game. He just said, you're one of my favorite players and I want to do this. I'm like, well, let me pay you. He goes, I don't want nothing from you. I'm like, man, this is awesome. So that was my diet. I had like 30 pretzels, soft pretzels, Philly soft pretzels, and they're the best.
The John Kruk diet for cancer relief. In addition to the soft pretzel vendor, who else was part of your close support community? Because our viewers are either touched by cancer or touched by someone who's been touched by cancer. And we know that the support around someone who has cancer is so important.
Yeah, well, Larry Boa, who was one of our coaches, and he was my manager in San Diego prior to this, and John Vukovic, they reached out to me almost every day to see how I was. Even though Don Zimmer I never played on a team that he was a coach or manager, but Don Zimmer looked like my dad. And the year before, when Don Zimmer was with Colorado, I brought my dad down and we took a picture. And so Don Zimmer, it was funny. He sent me a picture to the hotel, and it was him and he had the pants down over spikes and high tops, and he had wristbands all the way up to his elbow and big chain around his neck and flat brim hat turned sideways. And he said, the modern player. And it was hilarious. And I still have that picture in my office at home. But, my brothers, of course, my parents were, of course, very supportive and scared. Of course, I didn't realize this, but apparently I was born with I don't know how to say, undescended testicle, which could cause testicular cancer. So, of course, I didn't know this. My mom told me after I was diagnosed. Of course, she thought it was all her fault. So I had to convince her that, look, this happens. I'm going to be fine. It's not your fault. I will never think bad of you for not telling me. We were a family that just didn't express ourselves with our injuries and our, those type of concerns. But they were very supportive. But my teammates would reach out to me, but they were like, they were in the middle of spring training and they're trying to prepare for a season. And I remember when they came back, I met them at the ballpark after they came back from Cincinnati, and you know how it is. You know how it is, Pat, when you're in a locker room with a bunch of testosterone-laced men. I remember one of our coaches, and I'm not going to say his name, but he said, "Come on, man, let me see." And I'm like, "Come on, man." But, nothing was sacred. And those guys teased me, joked around. I didn't care. But I remember going back to West Virginia, and they were honoring the guys in my high school Hall of Fame. And so I went on field. And when I came back after the game was over, I started to leave, and people were yelling at me like, "Hey, one nut, hey, one nut." That pissed me off. I wanted to go kill these people. But I was with my mom, and my mom's like, "Hey, calm down." I'm like, "No, I'm going to go up there and beat the crap out of this guy." And you know how people are; they're just gutless. And but if my teammates tease me, I enjoyed that. But someone else I didn't know, no, that ain't happening.
John, take us back to the game opener, the Phillies game opener, when you're returning from being diagnosed with testicular cancer, radiation, chemotherapy, the whole works. Everyone knows that you've had cancer and you've gone through all the treatment plan. Take us back to that day.
Yeah, well, it was our home opener, so we were going to get our National League championship rings. And like I said, Pat, I just wanted to play. I didn't care about anything else. I just needed to get back on the field without laying in bed all day worrying. And, so it was like a game time decision. And my doctor, had to call in, tell, Fregosi and Lee Thomas and Dave Montgomery, all of them, that he can play. And they still didn't want me to play. And I was in there. Man, I did my best sell job, Pat. And so they let me play. So the last thing I wanted was this. I knew the Phillies fans, there would be a great reception for me, even if I didn't play. But I fought with them because, they announced the reserves. They go out on the field to get their ring. And then they announced the manager and the coaches and all that. And then they started to announce a lineup. Well, I was hitting third. They let me play. I was hitting third. So they go with Lenny, Mickey Morandini, and then they skipped me, went to Dave Hans. I'm like, am I not playing? And then they went to Darren and the rest of the lineup, and then I was announced last. And I never thought about, how I would be received. I thought it would be good, but I never expected what happened. When I walked out there, and Bill Giles, Lee Thomas, Jim Fregosi, they handed me that box with the ring in it. And when I went down the line and I saw Larry Ball with tears in his eyes, John Vukovich, two of the toughest human beings I've ever been around, and they had tears in their eyes. And I thought to myself, oh boy, this is bigger than I even dreamt it could be. The ovation, Pat, is something I will never forget. And I loved the Phillies fans prior to that, but after that ovation, I just fell in love with every aspect of being a Philadelphia Philly and being a part of Philadelphia. And I remember my first at bat, I hit a double.
Wait, stop right there, stop. So take us to coming up to home plate, this first at bat. Bring us with you.
Well, I was nervous because, I took batting practice probably 4 times off of Dickie Knowles. We had to scrape some ice away. Anywhere we could find it was a clear patch of turf. Dickie would stand in one spot and I'd stand in the other, and Dickie would throw to me.
No spring training.
None. I didn't have one bat. I had bat in spring training that year.
So you had as much as I did.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you this jokingly. So anyway, my first at bat, I hit a double. Of course, when I walked up to home plate, another.
Yeah, take me there. I want to go walking up to home plate with their bat, and what is going through this mind of John Kruk?
I used to get nervous before every opening day, and this was no different. It was just amplified. And walking up, of course, I got a great ovation. I hit a double, and I'm standing on second base, and standing ovation. The place is going crazy. I think it was Walt Weiss was playing shortstop for the Rockies, and he walked over and he goes, "Hey, dummy, if we want to continue this game, you better tip your helmet to him." So I tipped my helmet, and they kind of calmed down. But I ended up getting 3 hits that day, and I remember coming in after the game. We ended up losing, but I remember coming in, and like a lot of the guys were really PO'd at me because they had a whole spring training, hitting every day, playing in games, batting practice, the whole deal. And some of them didn't get any hits that day, and they're like, this sucks. You hit 3 or 4 times off of Dickie Knowles. You haven't seen live pitching as far as velocity, and you get 3 hits. And I'm like, I apologize, but it ended up being a joke. Like, someone, I think John Vukovic said, some guys hit when they can, some guys hit when they want to. He hits when he wants to. And I thought that was funny. And my teammates finally said, all right, well, we can live with that then. So, but it was, the ovation, Pat, was, the 3 ovations that I got that day, that'll be etched in my brain forever. And like I said, their love affair with me and my love affair with them just grew to enormous proportions after that.
By donating to the American Cancer Society, your gift helps improve the lives of people with cancer and their families. Together, we can work to ensure everyone has an opportunity to prevent, detect, treat, and survive cancer. Visit cancer.org/donate and help make a difference.
Welcome back to Mind, Body, Spirit, Cancer. This week's guest is former All-Star Phillies first baseman and cancer survivor, John Kruk. And he's been sharing with us his inspiring, entertaining story of his testicular cancer, radiation, because it metastasized to his stomach, and chemo, and then returning back to pro sports, Major League Baseball, within 5 weeks after surgery. I don't know how you do that, John.
Pat, I shouldn't have. But
you did. How did your body handle it?
It didn't. I was so weak. After the first game, I was really weak. After the second, third, fourth game in a row, I was drained. Physically drained. And so, Jim Fregosi did the right thing and sat me for a couple days to try to get better. But I don't think that entire year I ever got to where I felt halfway normal. I was always weak that whole summer. And I think a lot of it was because I was stupid and shouldn't have played.
Well, I wouldn't take all the blame there because chemotherapy not only does it kill cells, but it drains your energy in addition to radiation. However, and I know that you were a role model for all of us, not just Philadelphia Phillies fans, but men in particular, because it's testicular cancer, something that's not spoken about, and you went public. Did you see the response of people?
Yeah, when I had to do that press conference and announce it, and part of my message was, look, don't wait. If you check yourself, men, if you feel something, go to the doctor. And I think that after that press conference, the first week afterwards, I think 30 or 40 men were diagnosed with testicular cancer. And I've gotten letters from some of them that said, hey, if it weren't for you, we'd have never checked. But I also called my brothers, my nephews, and told them, look, you got to check.
And you were one of the first, I can only surmise, professional athletes to speak openly about testicular cancer. How did that feel to even be able to mention your journey and to share it with the public nationally?
Yeah, that was, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to others. And that means waiting too long, having the cancer spread. Mike Gallego, who played for the Oakland A's, Mike had testicular cancer before me. He called me and, we discussed it and talked about it. Mike Lowell played for the Marlins and the Red Sox. Mike had testicular cancer, and I spoke to Mike about everything. And a gentleman now that pitches for the Cubs, who was with the Pirates at the time, Jameson Tyon. I called Jameson. We talked about it. I just got his number from Clint Hurdle, who was the manager of the Pirates, and I talked to Jameson about it. Because one, we're a baseball family, but two, you help family all you can. And when I came up to the big leagues, it was like taboo to talk to the opposing team. But I was already done playing, so I just wanted to make sure that these guys understood that if you ever wanted to talk, I was here. Some former teammates of mine, Ozzie Guillen, was with the White Sox. I came up through the minor leagues with Ozzie. Ozzie called me, oh my gosh, Ozzie called me probably every other day just to make sure I was okay. And, I just wanted to get the message out to everyone because, it would have been selfish if it was just the Philly media. And the Philly people from Philadelphia that got this message out to check. So, ESPN did something and other Fox did something, I think. And so the word got spread and luckily, these young men are getting checked and, they're getting the treatment that they need.
What would you say your highs and lows were during the cancer journey, your personal highs and lows?
Well, the highs were, that desire to get back and play. And so nothing was going to stop me from that. And, I had that mentality like, this is just another injury. I'll be fine. The lows were after I found out the cancer spread in my stomach and they had to go from 20 to 25 treatments so they can, kill whatever was the cancer cells that were in my stomach. I would sit at night after treatments and, wonder to myself, is this it? Am I going to die from this? That was the hardest part was, because, Pat, when you're around sports, you're immortal. Ain't nothing going to happen to me. I'm an athlete. What can happen to me? I can overcome anything. But man, when you're sitting there alone in a hotel room and you're sick from treatments and, I honestly, that was my thought. That was the lowest of lows at night when I would think, am I going to die from this? How long do I have? The doctors kept assuring me you're going to be fine. But, like I said, you hear that cancer word, Pat, and it scares the bejesus out of you. And, that was my concern. Am I going to make it through this?
So stay with that. How has this cancer journey changed your life?
Well, to me, it's more about getting the word out. Any way you can get a message out about check. If you know anything, if you feel weird about anything, the doctors will give you a check. They won't just say, you're fine, don't come in, and that to me was more important than, me feeling, and that helped me not feel sorry for myself because, I realized when I was going through all this, there's people in a lot worse shape than me. But I think it was 1991, I did a charity thing called Kruk's Kids, and it was for cancer kids. And, I got to meet all these young kids, and, the parents would send me letters, hey, we're so happy. Harry Cowles would come and see us. A lot of my teammates would show up. The Fanatic came. We had games, and it was almost like a carnival type atmosphere. And the kids, for that one day, got out of the hospital and got to be kids. And to me, that's what, because I was in my 30s. I had a pretty blessed life, playing Major League Baseball, and not that I wanted to die, but when I saw those kids, I was like, man, this is brutal. And, I got letters from a lot of the parents, hey, thank you for that one day. It was the happiest my son had been in years. And, sadly, he lost his battle. And, that just, it just ate at my heart. And then when I had cancer, initially I felt really bad. I felt sorry for myself, like, woe is me. And then I started thinking about those young kids, Pat, who lost their lives, and how hard they had to fight to try to beat cancer and what it did to their young bodies, just deteriorating their bodies. Because, when they do radiation, chemo, and all that, they're killing cells, cancer cells, but there's also other things that, are going to be affected also, other organs and stuff. So, when I saw those kids, man, it just broke my heart. So I started thinking about those kids and thinking to myself, how can I feel sorry for myself? I got a really pretty good chance of beating this. And knowing that a lot of these kids that I was with for that one day, they knew that they had no chance. And that to me, they were so much stronger. Those young kids from 6 to 12, whatever, they were so much stronger than I mentally, because those kids understood and they fought and fought and fought, but they ended up losing their battle. A lot of them lost their battle with cancer. So I couldn't feel sorry for myself after I started remembering about these young kids and what they had to go through. What I went through was nothing compared to them.
Johnny, that broken heart that you suffered is why we all love John Kruk. And all of us who are paying attention to you, because you don't just preach, you walk the talk. What would you say to some young man who was just diagnosed with testicular cancer?
Well, I do talk to a lot of kids, a lot of, young adults who have testicular cancer. And, it's the only thing you can really tell them is, look, I don't know how to say this and not be, have it come off the wrong way. But a lot of, young men ask me about, will I be able to have sex again? Will I ever be able to have kids? And my message to them is, look, after I went through all my treatments and everything, I had 2 kids. So, those things you're going to be fine with. But, I just tell them, listen to your doctors, do everything they tell you. And when you feel tired, rest. You're going to be tired. You're going to be worn down. Make sure you get your rest. And like the Phillies were great because a trainer sent up, I forget how many cases of Gatorade and case of water. And that was it. My soft pretzel. And I kept drinking because, you can get dehydrated really quick after these treatments. And it was just, continuous. I drank Gatorade all day. That was after the soft pretzel. That was my lunch, snacks, dinner, post, pre-sleep snack. So, and that's what I tell everyone, just do what the doctors tell you. Don't be stupid like I was. And, trust us when we tell you that, you're going to be fine with the ladies. And, whenever you decide you want to have kids, you will be able to still have kids. And so I think that eases a lot of young males. I think that eases their brain a little bit because, anytime you have something, done down there, it's like, oh boy, he's a freak. No, you're fine. You're going to be fine.
John, you're amazing. I'm going to ask one last question. I think you've shared it with everyone, but is there anything that you would like to provide to anyone who's been touched in the cancer journey?
I think my message would be, Pat, is find a friend, find a relative, a brother, cousin, nephew, whatever. Talk about it because it helps ease your mind with everything you're going to be going through. Talk to someone about it. If it's a therapist, a psychiatrist, or talk to someone because it can mess you up mentally. It really can. But you have to find someone who you can go through this with, who will help you through it. And I had great teammates, great coaches, that helped me through all this, friends in baseball and family. They helped me through all this. And that's what I tell these kids when I talk to them, lean on people, don't go through this alone because mentally it will put you in a very dark place and you don't want to go there.
Listen to John Kruk. He's talking about the support community that we all need, especially with the diagnosis of cancer. Johnny, I love you. I love you. Thank you for sharing your cancer journey with us. And I hope we cross paths again, my brother, and not in 20 years. Much sooner.
No, we will.
Well, listen to you in the Phillies booth. Up next is our American Cancer Society Mission Moment with American Cancer Society's CEO, Dr. Karen Knutson. John, you would love her. More to come after this.
Home looks different to everyone, but its meaning is the same. Home is where we rest, where we heal, where we're meant to be together with the ones we love, to nurture our minds and bodies, to be ready for whatever's next. So when cancer knocks at the door and getting well means leaving home, having a place like Hope Lodge is life-giving. The American Cancer Society's Hope Lodge communities offer a home away from home to people facing cancer, free of charge. In more than 30 cities nationwide, patients and caregivers can access treatments and appointments, reduce the financial strain of a cancer diagnosis, and find community, support, and peace. Hope Lodge is a place to rest, to heal, to nurture our minds and bodies. And when it's time to go home, ring the bell. Hope Lodge, a home away from home.
Welcome back to Mind, Body, Spirit, Cancer. Here to provide some additional resources and information related to this week's episode is American Cancer Society CEO, Dr. Karen Knutson. Welcome, Dr. K, who I affectionately call K2.
Thank you so much for having me, Pat. It's really a pleasure to be here.
So, John, as you saw, is a great advocate for the importance of early detection. Can you let our listeners know the current ACS recommendations for testicular cancer examinations and our annual checkups enough?
Yeah, so testicular cancer is a perfect example of why it's so important to be in tune with your own body and to take action on your own behalf. So, it is the case that we do advocate for individuals to take awareness, but also to share concerns that they have with their primary care physician. So most doctors agree that examining testicles should be part of a general annual physical or routine checkup, but also recommend that men examine themselves after puberty. Now, there may be some men who are of more risk than others. And what does that sound like? So someone who's had an undescended testicle, a previous cancer that's called a germ cell tumor in a testicle, or a family history may want to take further vigilance of ensuring that any type of change in their testicle should be assessed. Now, we don't think about testicular cancer in the same way that we do as breast cancer or colorectal cancer, where there are very well validated screening tests that we know will increase survival from those cancer types. So, there is no additional test for testicular cancer other than that self-exam or anything that's detected on a routine exam. Thankfully, testicular cancers are typically identified early on when they're small, still defined to the testicle, and not yet spread to other parts of the body. Most of the time, it's a lump on one side of one testicle. The first time that it is detected could feel swollen, could feel larger than normal. But luckily, there are many ways to effectively cure individuals of early stage testicular cancer. This is a cancer type that is relatively rare. It is a little more than 9,000 new diagnoses every year, or this year expected in the United States, with a 5-year survival rate for localized cancer at 99%. So this is where early detection is really key. Now, finally, it's important to note that this is a cancer that's typically of younger men. So unlike many other cancers, this is typically someone who's early in their adulthood that would experience the symptoms of testicular cancer. Doesn't mean it can't happen later in life, but generally this happens in earlier stages than many of the other cancer types that we are concerned about.
Well, that's some great information. Dr. K, one of the other big takeaways from John's interview was the importance of his support system and how critical it was for him in his cancer journey. Is there any research on the impact caregivers have on a cancer patient's outcomes? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Pat. There are things that we've known anecdotally in the oncology world for a long time, and now we're starting to really feel confident about through research that individuals with caregivers generally do better. And that's to the point that we now have $13 million in grants at the American Cancer Society to understand how it is that working with caregivers, we can even further enhance cancer survival for patients. So there was a study in 2016 that first looked at some of these associations between patients who had advanced cancers and their survival if they had a family caregiver present. And that study was quite positive. In 2020, there was another study that reported out giving attention to the fact that having a caregiver can improve outcomes for the patient, but also improve quality of life for the caregiver. All of this makes sense to us. We would expect this to be true, but you really don't know until the research is done. So now this gives us an opportunity to work on that baseline and understand how we can improve it even further. So based on what we've been able to learn through research and studying the impact of caregivers, we now offer caregiver support videos offered currently in English and in Spanish. We hope to do more. We have a caregiver resource guide so that someone's not just being thrown blindly into the role of a caregiver, but can learn more about what to do based on best practices. But then we also have something we feel really passionately about. Our cancer information support line offers support 24/7, 365 days a year in more than 200 languages. That's how dedicated we are to ensuring that both patients and their caregivers have an opportunity to have all the information that they need in hand to maximize the chances of a positive outcome.
Now, caregivers, you heard it from the boss's mouth. Not only does your loving presence help your loved one, but as a caregiver, it helps with your health and harmony. One last question, Dr. K. These caregivers, these loving awareness, this presence within the family or friends, is there any other way that they can be helped to navigate through a diagnosis of cancer?
Yeah. So, caregivers also need to connect with each other. So we have mechanisms through our call center and others, to connect caregivers to someone who's previously had that experience, to say, here's how I helped my loved one through a very complex treatment for advanced cancer, and ideally try to match those individuals with someone who has is caring for someone with a similar diagnosis.
Wait, how do you do that?
Yeah. So
How do you do that?
so we do this through the call center. So someone can call and say, look, my loved one has advanced lung cancer and is going to go through a very complex set of treatments, or has just been offered an idea to get into palliative care. What does that mean? And so we can put them with others who've gone through that journey and walked in their shoes. And that's just proven to be one of the really important ways that we support caregivers, is not just by giving them information, but allowing them to have a support group with each other.
How cool is that? I love that. I love that, because it's not about beliefs. Here you're using personal experience to help you navigate with your loved one. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, like anyone, if you're going through something that's frightening, something that is emotionally draining, something where you often feel socially isolated, lost, alone in that. And at the same time, that caregiver has to be the source of strength for the person who is undergoing the cancer journey, to keep them optimistic, to keep them going, to be the air traffic controller, to know where they need to go. So in order to just find that strength within themselves, I think it's reasonable and a perfect expectation that source of strength can be derived from someone who's been through that journey and understands.
And we thank you for your source of strength, your passion, your experience, and taking the time to be with our community today. Thanks.
My pleasure.
This concludes this week's episode of Mind, Body, Spirit, Cancer, presented by the American Cancer Society. As our time together comes to an end, I would like to once again thank my guests, John Kruk and Dr. Karen Knudsen, for joining us. For more information on cancer research, advocacy, and patient support for your own or a loved one's cancer journey, please visit us at cancer.org, and don't forget to talk to your doctor about what screenings are right for you. I'm Pat Croce. Thanks for coming with us on this divine adventure, and be sure to follow and like us on whatever platform you're listening to. Peace.
The content of this episode is not intended as medical advice, nor should it replace the expertise of a medical cancer care team. Visit cancer.org for more information, or call the American Cancer Society National Cancer Information Center at 1-800-227-2345 to speak with a trained cancer information specialist. Mind, Body, Spirit, Cancer is executive produced by the American Cancer Society in partnership with Pat Croce, with production services provided by Brand Live.